Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the West Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by use of Zoom linked meeting found on West Newbury Conservation Commission webpage on the April 5th, 2021 agenda by calling in at 1-646-558-8656. The passcode is 633988 and meeting ID is 814-0417-1019.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, this meeting is being recorded and may be used for public broadcasting. Okay, so do you want to just read through the items that are continued?
So we have a public hearing for City of Newbury Port Department of Public Services, Lower Arctic Spillway, that has been a continuance requested for that. Notice of intent, the West Newbury DPW townwide hazard tree management requested a continuance. And Town of West Newbury Middle Street Arch Oak River Bridge notice of intent has requested a continuance. So the first item on the agenda is a continued public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Tuckett Regional School District for construction of a maintenance garage and parking area.
Yeah, I think last time there was a question about the determination of the isolated land subject to flooding. Were you able to look into that any further, Bert? In terms of methodology, there was a reference that a professional engineer should provide the engineering calculations.
Right. Pull it up quick. So there's a letter from Tracy Peters. You don't have calculations from a professional engineer. Yeah, let me pull this. There is a letter giving some more description about the calculations, what was done, that I got this morning. I did go out and walk the site with Bob in the last meeting. Saw everything was staked out, looked at the area in question.
Okay, the excerpt from the regulations that I sent to you, were you able to look into that?
Yeah, so it's something that, to my understanding, the commission could require, but it's not necessarily has to come from a registered professional engineer.
Okay.
It's discretion of the commission.
Okay. I can't really read all through this while we're in the meeting. Did you read through it? And are you satisfied with the calculations?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. And also I think on this one, it's important to note that there's no buffer zone associated with isolated land subject to flooding. So unless the question is whether or not the garage or the parking area is actually in isolated land, it wouldn't be in jurisdiction of the commission.
Okay. So having read through the letter submitted today, you're comfortable with the
I am.
with calculations? Okay. Molly or Tom, did you have anything to add to?
No, I think we were concerned about the fence, and if there's no buffer zone, I think it'll be fine.
I agree with Molly as well. I don't think that there's an issue at this point.
Bob Danforth speaking also. I mean, if you do really like, I could put some hay down the along the property line just to protect it well, we're doing the work anyhow. So if you'd like me to do that, that's fine also. I want to make you guys happy and, show that I'm trying to work with you. That's all.
Okay, appreciate that. So does somebody want to make a motion, or do we need any more discussion on this? It's an RDA, right?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll move that we issue a negative determination on the RDA for the maintenance building as applied for by the Pentucket Regional School District.
And do you want to have any conditions on that? Or notification to the agent or anything? I think sometimes we attach those.
Yeah, I think it would be important to notify the agent when work is to begin. The concern that actually, I'll leave the motion at that. I do have some additional discussion that I'd like to bring up.
Okay. All right, we have a second. So now is the time for discussion. Go
So,
ahead, Tom.
so the discussion, it's true that the isolated wetland is outside of our jurisdiction, but it's important that the isolated wetland is not impacted by the work being done. So again, Mr. Danforth's offer to provide some type of barrier, I think would be just very helpful. Especially if they're looking to begin, this month on any work with that maintenance building. So that's the only thing that would concern me about this proposal.
Bert, what kind of erosion control would you recommend in this application?
It's fairly flat, so I would go with a straw wattle or a compost sock.
Okay.
So I'll add that to my amendment that there will be a straw wattle or a compost sock used to prevent any damage to the isolated wetland.
Okay, any members of the public wish to comment on this before we vote? Okay. So all those in favor of issuing a negative determination, Molly?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Wendy, aye. So 3-0. Okay, you're all set?
Well, I appreciate your help and thank you.
Sure, just get in touch with Bert when you're going to put the erosion control down
Yes.
so he can see it.
I
That'd be
will.
great.
I'll get in touch with Bert and I'm gonna show the plan to the planning board also, so no
Okay.
problem.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is a notice of intent for DEP file number 0780723 Dare Run Development LLC for construction of roadway and stormwater management areas, wetland fill, and replication. Chris?
Yes, hello, Madam Chair. Chris Sparagus from Williams and Sparagus. How's everyone tonight?
Good.
Me?
Okay, so we were last before the commission back on the 16th of March. And at that meeting, I know that Ms. Reed had several questions. We had a bit of back and forth question and answers on the stormwater management areas, various aspects of them. And towards the end of our discussion, Ms. Meisner asked if there was any way that we could increase the size of the wetland replication area. And on this particular project, we have an opportunity to do that. We have some extra room available. It's an existing open meadow. I don't mind making it bigger because we don't have to take down any trees. And so Ms. Meisner asked, well, could you double it in size? And I said, I think we can. So we went back and we revised the replication area in this open meadow area by just taking the grade down a little bit to match the elevation of the wetland flags nearby. And again, it's an area that doesn't have any trees. And so on this revised sheet that that I think Bert's got up on the screen, or maybe it's Wendy, the wetland replication area is shown in a hatch symbol, and up above is a blow up at 10 scale. And it shows the wetland replication area now at approximately 520 square feet. And the members were okay with us making it bigger. And so we did that. And I believe the last thing that Ms. Meisner mentioned at the meeting last time was that a draft, an order of conditions of some kind would be drafted up so that we can talk about it tonight. I'm not exactly sure where we stand on that, but that's, looking back at my notes, that's the only remaining item I had in my notes from the last meeting.
Okay, great. Bert, so you circulated the draft order internally, but it wasn't provided to the
Chris,
applicant.
It was late, but I had just sent that to you. I don't know. It was probably just about a half hour ago when I got back in.
Okay, I've got access to my email here. I can certainly bring it up.
Is that something you can share, Bert?
Yeah, I've got a copy of it here.
Bert, can you identify anything that's not our standard special conditions? I mean, there's nothing unusual from what I recall.
I didn't think there was anything unusual in it.
Okay.
There was a couple other things that Judy had brought up when she just emailed me. I don't know if we wanted to go over those now or take a second to go over what's in front of everyone.
Why don't we let Chris look at these special conditions and see if there's anything that jumps out at him?
Yeah, kind of scanning through it.
Can you go to the next page, Bert? Okay, there's a question here for you, Chris, I think, and 12C about stockpiling.
Let's take a look here. Any vegetation or soils excavated for the wetland crossings which are intended to be used in the replication area shall be transplanted and or stockpiled. Okay, let's see here. Any vegetation or soils excavated for the wetland crossing which are intended to be used for replication shall be transplanted or stockpiled. Any other vegetation or soils excavated. Let's take a look at the plan real quick. I can also pull the plan up on my screen here, so you don't have to jump around too much. I can just take a quick peek here. You see, so it's a relatively small area.
And how long do you think you might stockpile the soils?
Right, so that's usually, because it's such a small area, and it is downhill of the proposed retaining wall work, we probably want to try to tackle it early on in the project. So there is an area directly across the street between the two stormwater management areas, Pond 3P and Pond 5P. That's literally across the proposed roadway. That would be a good temporary stockpile area because it doesn't interfere with anything that's going on between the two stormwater management areas, and it'll be a very small amount of material.
So would that be an area that had erosion control anyway?
It already has erosion
Okay.
and sediment control, downstream, but we could also, after we put the stockpile down, we can put erosion control around the stockpile itself as well,
Okay.
if that's okay. And that's not very far from the proposed replication area.
Bert, are you looking on the plan to see where he's talking about? I don't recall.
About station 200 on the right.
Chris, if you wanted to share your screen and show that, you should be able to.
Okay, let's do that.
Might be quicker.
Can everybody see the PDF here?
Yep.
So over on this side of the street, the left side of the street coming in, this is our proposed fill area. So we're going to be excavating a little bit of material over here. And so what I was thinking is, here's stormwater management area 3P and stormwater management area 5P. In between the two basins here, we could temporarily stockpile the material here while we then excavate out the proposed replication area, and then quickly just grab this material and shoot it right over here and be done with it. It's a very small, small area of excavation, and the stockpile will be very small, but we could put some silt fence right around it.
Okay, that looks good. Was there anything else in the conditions, Bert, that we needed input on? Or anything you see, Chris, that you want to
Yeah, just
discuss?
scrolling through here. I'm on 13, looking at the various letters here. Topsoil wetland replication area. Replication area work. Reports documented progress in the replication area. A lot of information on the replication area. Okay, so
Seems like there's several questions about stockpiling, topsoil, stockpiling of subsoil, and F, 13F,
here, 13.
13C, and 13F have the same comment.
Yep. So these are that area that I described between the two stormwater management areas is large enough to contain, all of the stockpiles associated with the wetland fill area and the replication area. We can have 2 or 3 small stockpiles, and we can line the entire area with silt fence temporarily. It's a relatively small operation to scoop out the materials from the wetland fill area and to scoop out the topsoil from the wetland replication area. And there's plenty of room over there in that same area for that. And it's we're not trucking it far away, and it's nearby, so no one will make a mistake about where to use it.
Okay.
I see a comment, a condition about snow, and that snow shall not be piled, and then there are a few question marks. We had Wayne Amaral come to our last planning board meeting, and we talked about snow removal. And is it okay to share my screen again?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Just to bring up that PDF again of the subdivision, if I were to zoom out here, give you a better picture of the roadway. So the cross section of the roadway is right-of-way line, which is this dark line, to the other dark line is a 50-foot right-of-way. And then inside the 50-foot right-of-way is only 20 feet of pavement right in the middle. And so there are places left and right of the proposed edge of pavement within the right-of-way where snow can be stockpiled left and right of the edge of the pavement without impacting the stormwater management areas, which are all on beyond the right-of-way. And then we've also identified another snow collection area in the island of the landscape island here at the cul-de-sac. So for the small 20-foot wide width of road, there's plenty of room left and right of the road as you come down to stockpile snow. And if you wanted to throw something in the order, I would encourage the commission to make sure that everyone's on notice, not to stockpile snow in any of the stormwater management areas.
Mm-hmm.
And there really should never be a need for that. We just don't have, we don't have that much pavement on this project to worry about people dumping snow everywhere. In this particular project, we have the luxury of a relatively long stretch here where you're not in front of homes, and there's a lot of area to work with.
And how wide is this? Sorry, Molly.
Sorry, does that go along with the homes clearing their driveways? Is that part of the homeowners association or?
So the town, I believe the way it's going to shake out, and this will be up to the planning board to make the final decision, but we believe because it's going to be a roadway that's built in accordance with the town standards that Mr. Crow is going to bring it to town meeting and ask for a town meeting to accept it as a public way. And I believe the way it would work out is that the town would be responsible for plowing, and the homeowners association would be responsible for the maintenance of all stormwater management areas and all landscaping and mowing maintenance and that sort of thing, including the landscape island. Now, in terms of the driveways for the private homes, they're going to be responsible for their own snow removal. And as you can see, looking at each one of these areas, there's plenty of room left and right, of the homes' driveways to stockpile snow with their snow blowers. We're not going to be blowing snow or pushing snow into stormwater management areas.
Okay.
I'm assuming, Bert, the condition about low sodium deicers is in the standard special? I didn't see it when I just skimmed through, but I may have missed it.
Yep, it's in
Yeah,
there.
it's number 17.
Okay.
So that's one that I saw. No sodium-based deicers. Okay. Let's see, the only other.
So I guess, Chris, I have a question. If the town does adopt the road, how will that work if there's, restrictions on the de-icing materials? Will the town have to bring a different truck to take care of the roadway?
So I believe that it's going to be whatever they normally do to plow and treat roads in the town of West Newbury for snow and ice. They're not going to make a special thing for us unless they already have such a program in place.
So if we include that as a condition, that's our standard special condition for roadways that are near resource areas or. So I guess that's a wrinkle we'll have to figure out how to address.
I think we have to talk to Wayne about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling, and I'm getting my towns mixed up because we run into this from time to time. I was just in Linfield not too long ago, and they're not gonna change the way they do things just because they're in the buffer zone. There are some more sensitive buffer zones, as we all know. Maybe one that might be tributary to a water supply, things of that nature, which DEP mandates that. But DPW directors and town engineers are always worried about public safety and protecting the residents from cars sliding off the road, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough balancing act.
So Bert, maybe we should highlight that one because it's going to depend on whether the town adopts the roadway or not, whether that condition will can be enforced or will be enforced.
And that's a conversation we need to have about the Artichoke Bridge as well.
Yeah.
So.
So the only other thing I noticed, Madam Chair, is special condition number 2. It reads, due to the proximity of development to wetlands and in order to maintain the integrity of the resource area, naturally vegetated areas extending 25 feet from the wetlands delineated in the above reference plan shall remain in place undisturbed except in the area of the wetland crossing for the roadway. Any areas encroached upon that cause a temporary disturbance in the 25-foot natural vegetation area shall be regraded, loamed, and revegetated with the seed mix to be submitted to and approved by the West Newbury Concom prior to application and shall thereafter remain undisturbed. Following construction, these areas shall thereafter remain undisturbed. There shall be no application of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, or other chemicals into the natural vegetation area. Several of our stormwater management areas happen to have elements that are closer than 25. These are things that were pointed out to the commission members during our site visit and during our plan review. So I don't know if that's in conflict with this condition.
It would appear so. So is it just the stormwater basin areas that are in conflict?
Let's look, just giving the plan a quick scan here. Stormwater management areas. Let's see. Head down a little bit further back. Okay, we're okay.
We might consider just excluding those, specifically, but.
Right. And let me go over here. Yeah, so we have elements, some stormwater management areas and or piping and discharges from those stormwater management areas, and some areas are closer than 25. just a quick scan, that's what I see.
Okay.
That's always the tough one, right? The stormwater management areas want to be down, in some cases, near the wetlands edge. Some of our discharges have to get to the wetland. And so that's always a balancing act. Once these areas kind of grow in, they'll probably, start to resemble more, some wetland-like features going forward. They're not going to be, it's not an area being used by residents, if you will.
But they will require maintenance.
That's right, from time to
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So I think we'll have to revisit that one as well. Is there a way for you to determine how much encroachment on the 25-foot no disturb would be created by the stormwater areas?
So I can highlight we have three proposed grading plans that show the site at 40 scale.
Yeah.
And I could highlight those areas, for the commission and point them out to you.
I think that would be helpful if you could do
Okay.
that.
But permanent markers, no problem. I mean, a lot of these things are pretty typical for orders of condition.
Yeah.
Looks like you guys mentioned the deed restriction, limiting future wetland filling. That's an important one. Yeah, I don't see anything else. I mean, the 25-foot disturbance one is an important one, and we talked about snow storage and snow and salt and de-icing. But other than that, I don't see anything else.
Okay. Bert, you said Judy emailed you some concerns or questions?
Yeah, so she sent me a quick email before the meeting. We've already covered some of it. But another thing was she asked her to clarify some of the pollution control best management practices. I don't really have much more details on anything specific what she was looking for on that. So I don't know if that can even be addressed, but
Was that part of the stormwater management plan?
yeah, it'd be part of
Yeah.
stormwater. And the other part is for maintenance of stormwater structures. If the homeowners association is going to be responsible for that, should there be a provision that a plan is provided to homeowners when they join the association?
So the homeowners association is a document that's going to be created prior to the lots being sold, and each of the lots in the subdivision are going to be subject to it. And so that'll be something that runs with the title of the land going forward. And it's something that we've worked very closely with the planning board and with town council. The town council is reviewing all of these documents as well.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be pretty ironclad, and having one entity responsible for all of the stormwater maintenance is going to make it easier to maintain them too.
I think she's probably raising that point because in past developments, we found that it's all in the deed and everything, legally it's there, but the homeowners have no idea about it. And then, they're asking us for the plan and how to implement it. So if we can avoid that, even if it's just as simple as physically copying the stormwater management plan and, handing it to the homeowners association or some kind of mechanism like that.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
And just looking at our stormwater report, we have a couple of sections in there that talks about long-term operation and maintenance, and then the long-term pollution prevention plan. And if Judy has a specific question or something like that needs to be addressed for one reason or another, we're happy to make an edit to that document. Or
Okay, I'll touch base with her about it, and if there's anything specific, I'll let you know.
okay.
Well, I think we're pretty close, right? So for the next meeting, we have to, I guess, figure out how we want to handle the snow and the 25-foot no disturb area, right?
Yes, I'll prepare, I'll take copies of the topographic plans, and I'll mark them up, and I'll identify all the areas where there's activity within 25 feet,
Mhm.
and try to explain to the best of my ability why. And now, as far as Wayne goes, do you want me to reach out to him, or will the commission, Bert, will you reach out to him and talk to him about that?
I can talk to him about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a protocol depending on, where the road is. I don't know.
Yep.
I think you guys have some zone A's in town where, you must have some low salt areas, mandated by
Yeah,
DEP,
along the reservoir, I would think,
right?
it's Newburyport's drinking water supply, so.
Right.
Anybody from the public wish to make a comment on this hearing? Okay, so do you have everything you need, Chris, to
Yes,
proceed
yes, I
and
believe I
finish this?
do.
Okay,
I'll jump on these plans right away. That's kind of important. It'd be great if we could be closer at the next meeting.
yeah,
And Bert, you'll get back to me about Judy's specific question on the pollution prevention plan. And then you'll also follow up with Wayne. And if there's anything else in the meantime, feel free to reach out.
Okay, great.
yeah, and Chris, once you have a chance to really look through these draft conditions, let Bert know if there's anything else that jumps out at you. I know this is kind of like under the gun review, so.
Yep, no problem at all. And if there are some question marks that I can help fill in, like where certain things are going to go, what I can do is I'll take that Word document and mark it up.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Okay, so we'll see you next time.
Yep, so continue to 19th, Bert, April 19th?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
all right, good night.
Good night.
All right, the next item is a public hearing, notice of intent DEP file number 0780727, Patricia A. Kelly, 34 Ash Street, for construction of a wetland crossing.
That's me. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, representing Pat Kelly for the notice of intent filed for one of her lots. To the right of her existing house, it's known as 34 Ash Street. The last public hearing, we presented the project and we requested a continuance to allow us time to conduct a site visit, which we had, I guess, a couple weeks ago. We met out there on a Sunday morning and we looked at the area of the proposed crossing, and we also walked up further into the lot so I could show the commission where the house is actually going to be proposed. And it's quite a ways from the road. It's really, when you look into the lot beyond the Christmas trees, the tall ones, where you start seeing some of the hardwoods, the house would be proposed right in front of those. So all those trees in the lower field would be proposed to remain. I told the commission at the last hearing that I'd submit our calculations for the culvert sizing, as well as the calculations. There's a little area, I'm just gonna see if I can draw on here. Actually, I don't think I can.
You should be able to now.
I can, okay. Yeah, I don't. Would it be okay for me to share my screen, Bert?
Yep. Yeah, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
All right, let me try that. Yeah, here we go. I'll use blue. So there's a little puddle that forms, and well, it's kind of in this area. And what I told the commission I'd do is we'd do calculations just to show that that area doesn't meet the definition of isolated land subject to flooding, similar to the two projects before the last one. We've done that, and I'll go through those calculations in a minute, but there's really two criteria. The area has to generate at least a 1/4 acre foot of volume, and then it has to be to a depth of 6 inches. And that lower puddle, I'll call it, it really can only fill up so high before it spills through the wall. So the deepest that could get is about 8 inches. So it could technically have the depth to 6 inches, but the subcatchment that I'll show you in a minute, it doesn't generate anything close to a quarter acre of volume. So it didn't even pass the first criteria. And the calculations we did were done by an engineer in our office. I just want to pull up one thing here first. So let me know when you can see this here. So this is the subcatchment. The area where the driveway is proposed is down in here. But the area that contributes to that low point is quite large. It goes way up on top of the hill. These little quadrants that you see are the blocks of Christmas trees, if you've ever walked on the property. And there's a bunch of them. But the wire fence at the back of the lot on top of the hill is here. This dark line that's thick is the subcatchment. And then the flow path that contributes down to this low point is here. So we've typed it right here on the plan that the total volume generated for the 1-year storm event, it's only 0.003 acre feet, and it has to be 0.25 acre feet. So it's not even close. But as we saw during the site visit, it's pretty soggy and spongy down in this lower field. And I suspect there's a series of isolated wetlands throughout that lower field. And that's why anybody that's driven by the farm has noticed that those trees aren't doing so great. They're tall, but they're not very, very thick. And for as long as I can remember, they've always looked like that. It's just simply too wet down there. Let's see. I'm just going to bring this plan up for a minute. So that area we were talking about was right in here. And over the years, Pat and everybody that's farmed the property have realized that driving along the stone wall and driving along the stone wall here is really the safest spot to drive, especially this time of the year. It's not as soft. That's exactly where we're proposing the driveway, is along this stone wall. We're planning to keep everything in that lower field alone, but to keep the proposed driveway far enough off that wall between the horse property next door that all those hardwoods can stay. There's a pretty good row of trees along that wall, and it just makes sense to keep them. One thing that has happened since the last hearing is we got some comments from DEP. And it's hit or miss with DEP. We've done, I think, probably a half a dozen projects that are very similar to this, where we've just proposed a culvert in the ditch without any replication. And we've described the ditch as a finger-like projection. And the regs allow the discretion to not require replication in situations where it's a finger-like projection, or in this case, a drainage ditch. But DEP dug their heels in on this, and they were very clear that they do want replication. And it's hard to argue with them because it technically is BVW. And in their opinion, this doesn't qualify as a finger-like projection. I think I could argue it either way, but I talked to Pat, and she said, just propose the replication if that's what they're looking for. But then, of course, the question became, well, where does it make the most sense to propose the replication? And the inland wetland replication guidance document likes you to try to replicate the wetlands as close to where you're altering as you can, for obvious reasons. But in this case, doing that would wipe out a pretty good chunk of hickory trees that are growing here that are very, very healthy. So we simply propose the replication area down a little further from where we're proposing to fill. It's only 230 square feet of wetlands, and that's all we're proposing to replicate. So it's about a 3-foot section that would have to be cut out adjacent to the BVW, still on the street side of the stone wall to create the 230 square foot wetland replication area. And in that spot, it's mostly multiflora rows. So it just makes sense. We can pluck out the multiflora rows, a row of silt fence would be installed along the BVW boundary, and we'd only have to lower the grade probably a foot at the most, because there's a naturally high water table in that area, and it just kind of seeps out of the side of that bank. And we're proposing to put in silky dogwood, sweet pepper bush, and sensitive fern. All should do really well. The silky dogwood does really well against drainage ditches or any type of ditch that conveys water, and it has a pretty good root system that will help hold that bank in place once it establishes itself. So that's something new that you didn't see, and we have a very detailed construction methodology for the replication area that was designed in accordance with the inland wetland replication guidance document. And as a fail-safe, we're proposing that the replication effort be done under the direction of a professional wetland scientist and or certified soil evaluator, just to ensure that proper hydrology is achieved. So it's a lot of work to create 230 square feet of BVW, but if we can get rid of some invasives at the same time, it does make sense.
So Greg, is that a 1-to-1 ratio that you're proposing?
It's 1-to-1, and a lot of times it makes sense to go bigger. In this case, I don't think it makes sense because you're working in a very narrow area adjacent to a BVW, and it's going to be a very, very careful approach. If there was somewhere else on the other side of the stone wall where we could create BVW, it might make more sense, but then it wouldn't connect to the BVW at all. It would be its own standalone wetland. They had some other comments too about the fee. Our idea, because in 2005, an A&R plan was submitted to the planning board and it was endorsed. It created 3 lots to the east of Pat's house and 1 lot to the west of Pat's house, all A&R lots that conform to zoning. But one thing that they didn't show is how they were going to get to these lots. And anyone that's driven down Ash Street knows that that ditch pretty much runs the entire length of the frontage of the property. The planning board now likes to see an order of conditions before they'll allow access, whether it's a common driveway or A&R, whatever type of subdivision it is. I don't think it was the case in 2005 because this would have all been worked out already. There's a 200-foot utility easement that exists on the property that pretty much splits it right down the middle. And in our conversations with National Grid, they pretty much said, don't waste your time trying to permit a driveway within our easement if you have other options. They didn't say it would be a no, but they really discouraged us from trying. They didn't want to see any grading or anything that could hinder their access within the easement. It's tough to design a driveway or a common driveway on a slope like this without grading. So that just told us to find another approach. And these lots have sat for years. Pat only wants to develop and sell 1 right now, and that's the lower lot, which is known as 34, which we're here for this evening. But being proactive and looking down the road, we wanted to design a crossing that could be proposed as a common driveway down the road if in fact somebody decided to propose that with the planning board. DEP said, we see your notation that this is a common driveway. We want you to adjust the fee. So we just took off the common driveway language on here. We took off the common driveway easement, and we're just proposing this as a driveway to service a single family house lot. But as you can see, it does meet the minimum standards for a common driveway. We've made it wide enough. In talking to Leah, the planning board has granted some relief from the 20-foot requirement. I think they've gone down as narrow as 16 feet in cases like this. But until we get to the planning board for the proposed wall break, we can't assume that the planning board is going to grant us that 16-foot width because we're not before the planning board for a common driveway right now. So we thought we'd propose a 20-foot, and certainly if we can get relief, or if something happens between now and then and she does want to propose a common driveway and the planning board's willing to let it be narrower, it would be less than what you see here, certainly not more. But we wanted to size it such that it could be used as that in the future.
So how is the DEP going to view this if your response to their concern is to just drop the language from the plan? Is that going to be adequate?
Yeah, because we've made it clear right in our response to them that this is
Okay.
to service one single family house lot at this time.
Okay.
And then another good point that I didn't even think about, because this was subdivided so long ago, is that same condition that you talked about with the prior project, limiting the amount of fill to 5,000 square feet for a real estate subdivision, that would apply here also, even though it's an A&R, and DEP pointed that out. So we're recommending that if the commission does issue an order of conditions for this, that they include that special condition requiring a deed restriction, limiting the amount of fill on this lot and all of the other lots on the parent parcel to less than 5,000 square feet. But, you know, Pat made it clear to me and during the site visit that she just wants to sell one now, and she doesn't have any plans in selling the other two on this side anytime soon. And the culvert, it's twice as large as most of the culverts along this reach of the ditch. Our calculations show that it needs to be at least 24 inches. And I just wanted to show you those real quick. Let me just close this. Let's see, what is here. So we ran this attachment through HydroCAD, and that all these calculations show the volume that contributes to that area, which is why we size it as a 24-inch and not a 12-inch. It seems a little odd to have a bunch of 12-inch culverts everywhere else, but then just one standalone 24-inch culvert. But who knows? Maybe everybody else will upgrade in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we are scheduled to go to the planning board at their next meeting to talk about the wall break. And we met with Wayne out here to talk about the one hickory tree that would have to come down. Wayne wasn't ready to say that it was a high hazard tree just yet, but he did say that I could tell the planning board and conservation commission that it was very much on its way to becoming a high hazard tree. The root zone was almost half showing, and you know, we saw that on the site visit.
So Greg, does the utility easement is that a limiting factor for the replication area at all, or is that?
So we've kept the proposed replication area outside of the utility easement, specifically for that reason. If they asked me if it had to go within the easement, I wouldn't be able to say yes.
Mhm.
You know, and one thing too that we mentioned at the last meeting is when we initially took on this project, it just made sense to keep the driveway where the existing access point is, but that's within the easement. And we'd have to traverse a lot of the easement to get to these lots on the right. And that was what prompted our conversation with National Grid. And they pretty much said, don't waste your time. It's going to take about 8 months, and we're probably going to say no, unless you tell us there's no other options. And we clearly do have other options.
So on the replication area, is it likely that future development, there'll also need to be replication areas?
If they propose to access the other lots and don't propose a common driveway where we're showing this driveway,
Mm-hmm.
they'd have to do something similar for all three. But
Just because, you know, typically we like more than a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm just wondering, you know, if we could make it up on the other lots, or, I mean,
Yeah.
I assume you've maxed out whatever land is available on the street side of the stone wall for replication area.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think if we tried to do any more in this area, we'd do more harm than good.
Yeah, okay.
But I will say the lot to the east of Pat's existing house, I think that came before the commission years ago. It's a very, very extensive wetland crossing. It's probably close to 4,000 square feet of wetlands that they'd be altering.
Mhm.
And there's certainly an opportunity to replicate wetlands on the Christmas tree side of that wooded area that you can't see from the road. And I know Pat has a farm pond behind her current house. So I think there can be a little give and take if and when that happens.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like that's going to be anytime soon.
Okay, so there's no other available spot for the replication area?
Not that would be contiguous to
The
where we're
existing?
doing alteration here.
Yeah.
Oh, they had some questions too about, we show a temporary sump to be installed, and all that is, it's a hand dug hole that's probably 24-inch diameter, maybe 3 feet deep, that we're proposing to put a perforated pipe in, surrounded by stone, just in case the construction for this happens when things are wet. But this ditch does dry up every summer. In the permitting path that they're on, if this does happen, it would be an early summer excavation. So there may be no need for it at all, but DEP just wanted some more information on what we're proposing for dewatering. But it's simply that pipe with a pump in it, and the water that would be pumped around the project, it would be clean water. And then following installation of the culvert and construction of the head walls, we proposed getting in with flat shovels and removing any sediment and just scarifying the channel with a steel rake and seeding with New England wet mix, all being done by hand. Obviously, the work for the driveway itself, you'd need heavy equipment, but the cleanup for the temporary wetlands altar would be very straightforward.
Okay, so have you responded to the DEP comments yet?
We did.
Okay.
And, typically when you do, you don't hear anything back.
Okay.
The comments are very, very thorough. I mean, they clearly looked at this, which is odd. Like I said, we've done almost 6 of these over the last 2 years, and none of this was required. But I can't say that she's wrong. I think her interpretation of the regs is accurate in this case.
So what is their working definition of a finger then, if this does not qualify as that?
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
Because, clearly a drainage ditch isn't intended to have to comply with the stream crossing standards. In this case, the ditch is 2 feet off the paved roadway. There'd be no way to even propose a bridge or a open bottom box culvert or even an arch culvert. You wouldn't be able to put the footings in. You'd have to reroute the channel. And in conversations that I've had with the Army Corps, drainage ditches aren't supposed to have to comply with the stream crossing standards. But, is it an intermittent stream? I suppose. And all intermittent streams are supposed to comply with the stream crossing standards. So we've always, in West Newbury, with these drainage ditches, called them finger-like projections, and we've never been required to propose any type of replication. And in this case, the client didn't want us to push back on DEP. Okay. She said, just propose the replication, and we had a good spot to do it, so it just made sense. So I don't know the answer to your question, Wendy. It's
okay.
I've certainly seen finger-like projections, or what I call finger-like projections. This may be a stretch to try to call this a finger-like projection.
Okay.
But there's no definition of drainage ditch in the Wetlands Protection Act regs.
Right.
So it's a bit of a gray area.
Okay, and you said the isolated land calculations, are they on the plans? Or is it just the summary that the engineer wrote there?
It's a summary, and we submitted a letter and attached the drainage calculations and plan showing this attachment.
Okay.
And all the HydroCAD information.
Okay.
And those are done by Peter Blaisdell in our office. He's a professional engineer.
Molly or Tom, do you have any questions or?
I do not.
Okay. Is there a reason that you would like or need to have us make a decision tonight? I'd kind of like to wait and make sure the DEP is satisfied with your comments. When did you submit them?
Today. We
Okay,
got the comments on Friday afternoon.
yeah.
So I
Well,
spent
that's pretty quick.
yeah, I spent this morning, and I apologize to Bert. I sent these to Bert probably around 2 or 3 o'clock today.
Yeah,
But we still have to go to the planning board. So if the commission wants us to carry to the 19th, we're not going to lose any time on our end.
okay. That would be preferable. Molly and Tom, do you think that's the way to go?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so we don't need anything else from Greg, right? Going forward, I think we're just going to wait for the DEP, make sure they're satisfied with your responses. Bert, is there anything else that's outstanding on this?
No, I think that covered everything.
Okay,
That's really.
okay. All right, Greg, well, we'll continue till the 19th then.
Sounds good.
Okay,
All right. Thank you, everyone.
all right, thanks.
Have a good night. Oh, Bert, do I have to make you the host again, or?
No, I figured out how to make you a co-host. So you're
Oh,
fine.
all right.
Moving on.
Have a good night. Bye.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Right.
The next item is a continued public hearing for notice of intent DEP file number 0780725. Gorman Homes LLC, Middle Street Assessors Map 22, Lot 2, Builders Lot A, construction of driveway, wetland fill, and replication. Hello.
Hi, how are you? TJ Melvin is on for Millennium Engineering.
Good evening. My name is TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering here on behalf of the project. So this is the Lot A plan that you see in front of you now. I know we were in front of the commission, I believe it was about a month ago. We have the wetland crossing along the roadway, and based on some comments from DEP, we have now proposed a wall as you come up. Yeah, if you can pan over a little bit to the right. We've proposed a wall along the right side of the driveway to try to maintain the 25-foot no disturb in that area. We've removed all of the grading. We've proposed some plantings on that side of the drive as well. Largely, the plan has stayed the same as what we had submitted last time for this lot. We still showed the driveway coming up in the same location. I know we removed some of the flags that the commission did not get a chance to take a look at the site walk, and all of the flags that were revised have been updated on the plan. I believe that is the extent of everything for this lot, John, unless there's anything else that I'm missing, but I believe that was really the only modification for this.
I believe you're right, TJ.
And Bert, did you see the DEP comments?
For these lots?
Yeah.
Yeah, the DEP comments came, unless there was updated ones that I haven't seen, but they were from
From a while ago.
the hearing. Yeah, they were from a while.
Okay.
And I believe, Bert, I believe you have our response to DEP's comments.
Yeah, I did.
As far as I know at this point, we haven't seen anything back from them.
Okay. So the flags that were relocated, it's hard to see on the plan. Bert, did you check out that the ones that needed to be moved were?
Yeah, and the ones that were removed were the ones that were greater than 100 feet from
Okay.
the work being proposed, so there wasn't any need to have them on the plan.
Right.
And then we moved a couple that were down by Middle Street, right?
But yeah, we moved. I don't have the exact numbers there in front of me. I know we moved a few down there. Not
I
any
think
real substantial movements, or they weren't terribly far. But
I think it's noted as the old wetland flag B3.
Oh, yeah, right here.
So did you submit construction details for this wall? The retaining wall?
I believe they're on sheet 2. Just check, sorry. Nope, there is no detail for the wall. We can add that to the plan. It's just a 4-foot retaining wall. Probably just be just our standard detail.
Well, and the fact that you're doing the work in a buffer zone, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So are there any other questions on, I mean, what were we waiting for on this, Bert? Were there outstanding items that needed to be addressed other than the wetland flags?
They were more on the other lot.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, but we had the flags moved. Those wall details, I think this covered about everything. The flags had to get removed off this plan.
Yeah.
Unless there was any questions about the directional drilling up at the top of the site.
Yeah, I thought they were going to add some details about that.
Went over on the site walk.
Yeah.
I don't remember any specific questions that came out of it. But.
So DEP doesn't have any comments about the directional drilling?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I guess just because it's a new thing and for us to be considering, it just seems like.
It seems to be something more and more common for residential development. It seems to be popping up quite a bit. So
yeah,
I haven't seen any DEP guidance on this yet.
I wonder if like Board of Health would have any comments either. I don't know. I think some of the concerns were that, you know, what if the pipe breaks or becomes unstable? What are the implications? And I guess. So
the septic plan, and I don't know if you guys have gone to Board of Health yet, but the septic plan would have to go to the Board of Health.
Yeah.
They would be reviewing the plan.
Yeah, we've met several times with Paul, kind of informally. He's seen the plan, a handful of times. So that's been on the table from day one with our design. So he hasn't made any comments about it. So I assume he seems to be okay with it, I should say.
So where are you in the process of getting Board of Health approval then?
We haven't actually officially submitted. We've sat, well, these days can't sit down with Paul, but we would, email him PDF and kind of, he'd mark them up and send them back and we make some changes. We're kind of waiting to get through Concom before we really submit with Board of Health.
Well, we typically don't issue an order until we have the Board of Health approval.
Okay.
But I think, Wendy, this is John Gorman. I think we have to actually get the lot split before we have Board of Health do the septic systems.
Mm-hmm. So you mean the planning board has to decide first?
Yeah, well, we would get the intent is to get the crossings done and the order of conditions go to the planning board and do a Form A or an A&R.
It's a little problematic because, we have to make sure the Board of Health evaluates the design of the septic system to make sure that the wetlands are protected. It would have been better to do this in tandem. I think that's typically how the orders are done.
I've met with Paul numerous times on this, and actually the directional drilling was his suggestion for this lot. The drafts that Millennium have ready to go to the Board of Health have all Paul's comments in them. So we were just waiting until we got through the A&R process to submit him for his final stamp. I mean, he has been involved very heavily in this from day one.
Okay, Bert, can you go back down to look at the road, Middle Street? Okay. So the DEP didn't have any comments on the driveway?
DEP's comments from my memory were more geared toward Lot B.
Yeah. Okay, well, should we discuss Lot B while we're in the middle of this? Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Gorman?
I'm sorry.
Should we go ahead and discuss the other, open the other hearing as well so that we can discuss both of these?
Sure, that's fine.
So we'll also open continued public hearing, notice of intent, DEP file number 0780726, Gorman Homes LLC, Middle Street Assessors Map 22, Lot 2, Builders Lot B, construction of driveway, wetland fill, and replication. So what would,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Do you want me to give just a brief overview of what we've changed?
Sure.
Again, TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. So we kind of minimize the grading along either side of the crossing to minimize any disturbance to the wetland. It's pretty much designed at the minimum right now. We left the proposed replication area the same, so we're a little over 2-to-1 replication. And that's really the majority of the change. I believe the old plan may have shown work upslope, but we've since removed that as it was all out of the buffer zone. But ultimately, this is very similar to the original plan that was submitted.
Can we look at the detail on lot sheet 2, Bert, for the parking area or whatever it's called, the driveway? And what were their DEP's comments on this, Bert?
So DEP's comments on the original plan that was submitted, if you remember, the plan showed it was out of the buffer zone. It showed the house being proposed, septic system, and then it also showed a driveway coming off of Arkansas Hill Road.
Mhm.
In DEP's comments, basically questioned whether this would qualify as a limited project when an alternative in how, what would justify filling wetlands when an alternative access to the lot is shown. I know we've sort of gone back and forth quite a bit about why that is, but that was the bulk of DEP's comments.
And so, Mr. Gorman, did you get responses from did you respond to the DEP's comments on this?
Oh, we did. Millennium actually responded to the DEP, and Jeff Roloffs, who's on tonight as well as an attorney,
Yeah.
responded to the DEP comments.
And was there any follow-up from DEP? Are they satisfied with the responses?
There's nothing back from DEP at this point.
And when were they submitted, your responses?
I believe it was 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, it seems like we need to wait and make sure, because this is such a unusual case for permitting. Molly or Tom, do you have any outstanding concerns or questions that you want to discuss tonight?
Yeah, I think it's going to come up again with the Board of Health, and if we have pipes running under wetlands, I think that abutters are going to have concerns about them breaking, and so it does make it tough to, until Paul signs off on it. I feel like it's a little hard for us to make that call.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could always propose a condition requiring the Board of Health approval before we do any work.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm
just,
just I'm saying that because Paul was heavily involved in the
Yeah.
development of the systems.
yeah, and I just think this is new for our town, so, you know, we don't have much experience with it.
Bert, would it be worthwhile for you to reach out to Paul? It might be good if he could just like write a letter just about in general, his concerns about directional drilling, when it's appropriate, when it's of concern. You know, to Molly's point, this is not going to be the last time we encounter
Right.
this.
No, it's certainly not.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can definitely talk to Paul about that and see if he could, I could at least ask him if he could put something together just to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. And so the plan was to get the order of conditions and then go to the planning board and then the Board of Health? Is that your approach?
Correct.
Okay. So I think we need to figure out, that's not typically the way that we approach things. Usually an applicant goes through all three boards at the same time so that we can make sure that everybody's approving the same thing. So by doing it this way, you may be slowing it down further. But I think we do need to wait for to make sure that your responses to the DEP were adequate to their point of view. Let's see, do we have, I think we probably have people from the public that might want to comment. Can you take down the plan, Bert?
Yep.
Mr. Baker, did you want to comment?
We're going to wait till after this is continued, we'll speak in the next meeting.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to comment on this matter? Okay.
Wendy, I did have one thing, or a couple things from Judy.
Okay.
She was wondering if it would make sense to amend the notice of intent filing if the applicant doesn't want to proceed under limited project status. If there should be an amendment from the NOI stating that.
Yeah, I believe we could resubmit the paperwork showing that we're not filing under a limited project.
Yeah, I think that would make sense to do.
Okay.
And the other concern was, I know that there'd been in some letters before, there was talk of a condition on the project that would basically say, you know, this is about Lot B, that the work on the driveway not be done, and a certificate of compliance be requested once the alternative access is obtained. And I think there's just some concern about whether that's a reasonable condition, that that's something that could actually be put into an order of conditions. You know, where this is sort of an unusual filing. That's not something that, to my knowledge, has been put into an order of conditions here. So I don't know if there's any other orders that has had something like that maybe you could point to. It just might be helpful to get some other information on the logistics of that condition, I guess. I don't know if you guys have ever had another project with a condition like that, but it might be helpful if you know of something, just to you can maybe look it over. And that was it.
Okay, so Bert, if you would reach out to Paul, and can you also just check with the DEP to see, you know, whether we can expect any further comments from them or whether they're satisfied with the responses from the applicant?
Yep.
And that's really all that's outstanding at this point, right, in terms of our questions or concerns. Tom, did you have any other questions or concerns? Okay,
I do not.
okay. Molly? No?
Nope.
Okay.
So Wendy,
Um,
it's those three items. It's the amend, so it's not a limited project. It's talking or touching base with DEP and making sure Paul is okay with what we've done.
Did we want to
Yes.
see detail on the wall too?
Yeah, I had that written as well.
And if you could provide any example conditions to Bert's final point, if you've
Yeah,
done this.
yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know there's a similar project I did, but I'll double check.
okay. Okay, then we will continue both hearings until April 19th.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it for public hearings. The next thing on the agenda is the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Do we have anything new on that?
We get Greg's letter,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't new, but
It seems like it was so long ago, but
I know. But I think his point about the intermittent streams is well taken. I think
Mhm.
you know, if we had this in place, we wouldn't be building the high school because that's, you know, within 200 feet of an intermittent stream.
Mhm.
So I think what he was saying that in, what was it, in Boxford? Yeah,
Yes.
that they've identified certain important intermittent streams, and maybe that's something we could do. If we wanted this to further that protection.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Judy, I mean, I don't remember seeing this in the MACC template bylaw. Bert, do you know if she added this?
I thought this was in the MACC bylaw, but
Really?
I'd have to go back and double check that, but I thought it was. So I also, in Judy's email, she mentioned that, so she said she's going to be circulating some amendments from Greg's comments at some point this week.
Okay.
You can look for, she'll send those to me and I'll send them out to everyone. And the idea of limiting the protection of certain intermittent streams might be a bit more of a challenge here than it is in, Boxford, the example we've been using, because a lot of those are named intermittent streams.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they mostly come off the Ipswich River. So that might be something that's challenging to do here, because I don't know if any of them, none that come to mind for me are named. I'm sure there's some, but off the top of my head, I can't think of them. But she did mention possibly excluding those portions of intermittent streams that are running along existing roadways.
Mhm.
Um,
I think that's a way to get around it.
yeah, because I do think that would be a challenge.
Mhm.
Regulating 200 feet on basically on every roadside ditch in town, that would be very challenging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like that approach. So,
Yep.
so would we get into definition issues about, what running along the road? What does that mean? Or is that pretty
but
straightforward?
so that's the next thing that she had in there, is that she thinks we should add some definitions.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I think that would clear up the vernal pool thing too. I think a little bit more detail about what's required to be functioning as a vernal pool.
right. The last thing from her was adding a waiver provision into the bylaw as well, which I think is important. I can just speak to some of my other experiences because of the way a bylaw is written, without a certain waiver provision. It's required people to file notices of intent for work that, typically you wouldn't expect to have to file a notice of intent for work. So I think adding a waiver provision in for, really minor projects that would typically be an RDA, and don't necessarily need to be in order. Notice of intent would be useful, and it would help save the commission time and save residents time as well and money.
So what are the requirements in terms of establishing when a waiver's, acceptable?
That's something to talk about.
Yeah.
That's just one of my thoughts I've had on it is.
No, I think it makes sense, but I mean, some of these changes can we pull this off by town meeting making these changes? We basically have, a month and a half left, right? Oh, 2 months, I guess, the end of May. So did Judy say she was going to work on making revisions based on the comments?
She said she'd be circulating amendments from Greg's comments.
Okay.
So, but didn't mention anything about putting together the waiver provision or definitions. A lot of the definitions would be clarifying definitions that don't change from the state regulations.
Okay.
So that's something that I can just go through and put together. It's just, these copy and pasting definitions from state regs.
Okay.
That's pretty quick and easy. So I can do that this week.
And weren't those definitions in the template, the MACC template for the bylaw?
I haven't looked at the template in a little while. I think
Okay.
so.
All right, but at any rate, you can find them and just
Yeah, at any rate,
yeah.
At least for the ones that are in the state regs.
Okay. Go ahead, Elisa.
Can I just confirm that Greg is Greg Hoffman, the one who made the comments?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had the intermittent streams and the waiver. Did she say what other changes she was going to just responding to his comments?
Definitions and circulating something about Greg's comments.
Okay. All right, so
And then-
hopefully, go ahead, Molly.
Oh, just the selectmen being concerned about the notice to abutters being expanded, but I think that's a good idea. I think it just.
That is in the MACC model bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the more people that know about projects, the better. I don't really think it's going to be adding that much of a cost.
Mm-hmm.
If you look around at other towns too, I think that's a pretty common one to have.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, potentially we could have the new language by next meeting, right? In 2 weeks. Okay. I assume that we're going to need to go before FinCom to talk about this article. I mean, has Angus said anything to you, Bert?
Not about FinCom, but I can ask him about it.
Okay. I mean, since there's arguably no money involved, Tom, does FinCom usually weigh in on bylaws and so forth?
They do. I think there's maybe over the last 15 years, that might be like one where they voted, for no comment. But I've seen even like a lot of the planning board bylaws where they've provided feedback, right?
Okay.
So on this, if they take the slant of Dave Archibald's concerns, for example, that there may be additional costs in terms of additional staffing hours, things of that nature, they're probably going to provide some type of feedback in the finance committee book.
Mm-hmm. I think there's only one more meeting. I've been to 3 of them. So maybe you could check with Angus, Bert, just to see. I think it would be good if we were represented,
Yeah.
if they're going to discuss this. And if it's before our next meeting, if you could just let us know by email, that would be great. And you might also let Angus know that we are making revisions based on the board's comments, as well as Greg's. So
Okay.
if the meeting could be deferred until after we get a revised version, that might be better. Anything else in the bylaw? And any other business that we haven't discussed? Dawn had said that she was kind of strong arming somebody to be interested in being on Concom, and he was going to be here tonight, but I don't see him, so I guess that fell through. Dawn is probably going to step down, and hopefully I'm not going to be here next year. Tom, have you decided if you're running again or if you want to be reappointed?
I still have I think I'm until next year. So.
Oh, I thought you were this year.
No, it's next year, 22.
Okay, great. I reached out to a couple people, Kathy Fury, who's, was involved in the vernal pool delineation on her property. Also Scott Brown, who's an architect who's been in front of the board a couple times. Possibly interested, but if either of you know anybody else that might be interested, we should
Who
try
was
to.
that? There was a guy that came in from Way to the River Road. Do you remember? That was.
I remember who you're talking about, Molly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
He came in and just wanted to know if we were accepting new members or commissioners, and he seemed interested, and he had a background of environmental science. I think he does like IT stuff or something now, but.
Was that a while ago?
Within the last 2 years, I think.
Really?
It's in the minutes. I will send you that information.
Oh, awesome.
So Wendy, I stand corrected. This is my third year. Time flies when you're having fun. So yes, I'm going to seek for another 3-year appointment.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks. All right, so 2 slots. 2's better than 3. All right. Is that it? Are we adjourned? Bert, did you have anything else?
No.
No? Okay.
All right.
Do you want to do the minutes, or do you want to wait till next time?
Let's see.
I did not review them yet. So
saved by the Tom.
So if we could do that next time, that would be great.
All right. Sorry, Lisa.
Fine with me.
Yeah, okay. All right, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice night.
Next time.
Good night.